What's up, everybody? DJ Bucky back with you. Buck, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm good. I am good, DJ. Coming off the heels of that last fight, got a lot of positive reaction and feedback. A lot of people in the DMs talking about like it was a really creative way to look at team building and that stuff. And so it's cool. It's too bad they played and got whooped against the Celtics last night. We probably should have given the Celtics a little more love based on that. But nah, it's great. Everything's cool. What's going on with you?
No, everything's good, man. We've got a fun one scheduled today. We are going to talk briefly about some of the changes in Pittsburgh, which I feel like you only do that once every 20 years because they don't make changes there.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into kind of connecting our philosophy with some numbers. So we've talked about how to build around a young quarterback. We've talked about the 3 Ps. You guys know what those are. If you don't, we'll fill you in here in just a minute. But we're going to try and connect the numbers with the philosophy, and then we're going to look at the changes that were made for those teams that maybe struggled last year, and see if we're optimistic or pessimistic going forward. But I figure we start here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Omar Khan, who's been there forever, really kind of handling their salary cap and contract negotiations, and done a phenomenal job there for the last 20 years, I believe he's been there. He was just elevated to be named the general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and it's notable because when you get a job there as a head coach or a general manager, usually it's about a 20-year minimum in terms of how long you're going to be in that role.
Yeah, no, it is notable. And one of the things that the Pittsburgh Steelers have always done really well is they are what we call a homegrown organization. Players, scouting staff, coaches, they kind of tend to kind of bring their guys up within their system, and then their guys kind of grow within the system and continue to elevate up as they gain experience and expertise in those things. And so for Omar Khan to be elevated to the general manager role says that they're staying true to that process. The difference is they bring in our guy, Andy Weidel, from an outside organization to maybe add some new life, some new blood to the pipeline. And so it's a mix of new and old, but it allows them to kind of retain the flavor that has always been part of the Pittsburgh Steeler mystique and tradition, while also branching out and bringing in maybe some outside ideas to kind of maybe make this organization a little forward thinking or a little different. So I kind of like it because it allows them to continue to stick to the old model while continue to think and expand on their ideas, and maybe it makes them a better organization overall.
Yeah, an interesting thing about Andy too is Andy's known Omar for over 20 years. They worked together with the Saints. You know, Andy started actually his first job, I believe, was with the Steelers coming into the NFL. So he's somebody who grew up in Pittsburgh. The Steelers are very important to him. So I think that's a great fit. Andy actually played in college against Mike Tomlin. So you've got some synergy and some connection there. I think, Andy's upbringing in the Ravens organization, where he really kind of established his identity there. There's a healthy respect between the Steelers and the Ravens, as good as those organizations have been over the years, the same division. So I think it's a good fit there for what they're doing in Pittsburgh, and excited to see how they proceed. I mean, like we said, you get a head coach or GM gig there. You got a patient owner, and they understand how to win, and it's as good a culture as there is. Sometimes you come into a new place or you get elevated, and we got to change all these things. I don't need to do a lot of changes there in that organization. They might be the envy of not only people inside the NFL, but around the sports world.
Yeah, no, they are the envy. You talk about a model consistency the Pittsburgh Steelers have been, and understanding what the standard is there. They talk about winning championships. They have hoisted the Lombardi Trophy about as many times as you can get in the National Football League. This is a team that understands how to win. They've done a great job of continuing the tradition. And Mike Tomlin, a guy who doesn't have any losing seasons on his resume, look, it speaks volumes. But I think it also speaks to the Rooney family and those guys in terms of like how they see this organization, but how they're also willing to adapt and evolve as time and years go on.
No doubt. Well, best of luck to Omar. Congratulations to him on a well-deserved promotion there to be the new general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, this is what we want to do today. Kind of a fun project. Not going to be the longest episode, but this is something I thought would be a fun way to get into it. We always talk about the 3 Ps, Buck. We've talked about it on here forever. We've talked about, when you're building around a young quarterback, you want to surround him with pass protection. You want to surround him with playmakers. You want to surround him with the right play caller. And I thought, okay, well, let's look at some of these teams that maybe were struggling in those 3 areas. Let's identify who those teams were. Then let's look at what they did in the offseason and see if maybe there's some signs there that it's going to get better. So the three stats we looked at were pressure percentage. So if we're talking about protection, let's look at who the most pressured teams were, the most pressured quarterbacks. For playmakers, we're just going to look at it as a passing league. We're going to look at explosive passing plays. So who are the bottom 5 teams in that category? And then for play caller, obviously there's no stat for a play caller, but I thought let's just go generic. Let's just go points per game. Who are the 5 worst teams in points per game? And is there continuity? Is there a change at that play caller? Maybe we can see some room for improvement. You ready to roll?
Yeah, man, let's do it.
Okay, let's start here with Pass Pro. So if we look at pressure percentage last year, the 5 worst teams, the Atlanta Falcons, the Carolina Panthers, the New York Jets, the Philadelphia Eagles, surprisingly, with all the talent they have in their offensive line. I think some of that, you can look at some of the athletic quarterbacks who might run into some of that.
Yeah.
Seattle was the 5th. Same thing there with Russ. But let's start with the Atlanta Falcons. And when we look at their offensive line, I've got our lads here, just kind of what we're going to go off of here for their starting line. Man, it looks like you've got Matthews at left tackle, Jalen Mayfield, Hennessy, Lindstrom, McGarry. So you're relying on all the same names. Are you optimistic that group is going to be better another year together?
I'm not optimistic that they're going to be better.
Okay.
I think they may know the system better, and there may be more continuity and chemistry because they're another year together. But at some point, of all those guys that you listed, I don't know if there's a blue chip guy amongst the ranks. And at some point, I know we've talked about it, you don't necessarily need like all the guys, but you can't have a tomato can. That's kind of how we phrase it. I don't want to disrespect these guys by saying tomato cans, but I would say that recycling, we can recycle a lot down there in Atlanta. And so we just got to make sure that those guys play on the string. So I'm worried about what that could look like if a young quarterback had to jump in behind that offensive line.
Yeah. I'll add this, we talk about pressure percentage. The one thing that they do have going for them is that you've gone from a stationary pocket passer in Matt Ryan to now you've got Marcus Mariota and Desmond Ridder. Those are your top 2 quarterbacks, 2 guys we compared Ridder to Mariota, 2 very athletic guys. That's going to allow you to do a couple things. It's going to allow them to get away from some of that pressure. It's going to allow you to move the pocket. It's going to be able to move that launch point. Don't let teams get comfortable where the quarterback's going to be. I think that could be an area where maybe you see an improvement here is by adding some of that athleticism. Now, you also, the downside of that is with Matt Ryan and his experience, you're gonna lose some of that quick processing of being able to see things and get the ball out of your hand real quick.
Yeah, you are going to lose some of that. And look, the Matt Ryan loss is going to be a bigger loss than people may anticipate. Matt Ryan is he's a pro. Not only a pro, but he's a guy who's been an MVP in this league. And processing speed, being able to get the ball out, his accuracy, probably he hasn't got enough credit for that. And so now you talk about having athletic quarterbacks who, are lesser playmakers in those areas. It's going to impact the offense. Yeah, the mobility certainly could protect the offensive line. But then what you gain in mobility, you lose in accuracy and ball placement. I wonder how that offense functions when you kind of take a step back in those areas.
All right, let's get to the next team here. Same division. So we've talked about Atlanta. The Carolina Panthers pressure percentage for Sam Darnold, no bueno, 38.9%. So the Falcons were 40.8. Carolina's second worst, 38.9. Now we can look at some changes amongst this group. Yeah. They're going to line up left to right here with Ekwonu, their first-round pick last year. We've got Brady Christensen. We've got Bradley Bozeman, the center from Baltimore. We've got Austin Corbett from the Rams, and we've got Taylor Moton, right tackle. So we can look at that group and say, talent-wise, it's definitely a more talented group than what they've had.
Yeah, talent-wise, they are a more talented group. And because of the composition of the group, they should be able to run the ball better. And we know if you run the ball better, then it allows you to move your passing game from a traditional drop back to maybe more play action. And so the play action may help them keep Sam Darnold upright. It may help them be able to be a little more functional. And also, like, we'll talk about Christian McCaffrey in the playmaker category, but bringing him back also changes the way that defenses will attack the line of scrimmage based on number 22 being in the backfield. So I would say that this team has gotten better up front. And so I wouldn't expect to see them on that list next year when we do this exercise.
Yeah, no, I think it's a better group. And McCaffrey's a big key to that too. You mentioned it. Just kind of get some of that run game going, take a little pressure off. All right, third worst team last year, pressure rate, the New York Jets at 38.4. Now you can, again, look at some key moves here. You've got, as they go left to right now, George Fant looks like he's going to be the left tackle. Wouldn't be surprised if there was a contract extension done with him either. Laken Tomlinson comes over, one of the top guards in the league, and he's in a scheme. He's very comfortable. He's going to be the left guard. Connor McGovern comes back at center, serviceable. Elijah Vera Tucker was really good last year as a rookie. He moves from left guard to right guard. And Mekhi Becton, who barely played a snap last year, got hurt early in that season. He hopefully comes back healthy, and he is your right tackle there. So a big assumption there on his health. But you could say, with Laken Tomlinson coming in, Elijah Vera Tucker year 2, man, if Mekhi Becton plays, that is a much improved unit.
Yeah, Mekhi Becton plays. I think he's the linchpin to everything, right? This is a guy who has tremendous talent. We saw that talent his first year in the league, but injuries and other stuff, like he hasn't necessarily been the same player, been available. So if he comes back and plays to his draft status, man, this team is much better because they've done a lot of good things in terms of retooling and rebuilding this offensive line. I would expect this offensive line to look different because now the quarterback is more experienced and the ball should come out quicker. Yeah, this is another team that I think has made major strides in this area. I expect to see a more competitive and a different Jets team when they run out the tunnel this year.
Yeah, we're going to get to the Jets and some of these other categories as well. They will show up. The Philadelphia Eagles, again, I think this is a little bit of the byproduct of some injuries, but Jalen Hurts maybe holding on the ball, trying to do too many things there. It's going to be a lot of young quarterbacks showing up here, and that's why we talk about these 3 Ps, trying to help these young quarterbacks. But Jordan Mailata, is well paid, is one of the more talented left tackles. Landon Dickerson comes back. Want to see him take that next step. Kelsey gets you, he's going to get you one more year. They drafted Cam Jurgens behind him, so you've got some depth there with Kelsey. Samalo is at right guard, and Lane Johnson is good at right tackle when he's on the field as anybody we have in the league.
Yeah, no, this is a really, really good team. And everyone is excited about the Eagles and what they've done in the offseason. This is a team up front that has the talent to be much better than this list would indicate. I think we could talk about this is a team that prides itself in the offensive line and the way that they play. I think they'll get back to that. And as Jalen Hurts evolves and as he understands the timing and the rhythm of a passing game and how as he gets more experience, the ball should come out. And I don't think he will run into some of those mistakes. But this is part of the challenge and the dilemma that you have when you have one of those athletic quarterbacks. They're great when they escape, but sometimes they run themselves into trouble, and that is pretty indicative of some of the stuff that we're seeing from the Eagles in terms of where they stack up on this list.
Yeah, the last team here, the Eagles were at 38.4, so they were tied with the Jets. At 38.3, just below them, the Seattle Seahawks. So obviously Russ has kind of been known for holding the ball, and that can lead into some of those pressures. Although that was not the 90s Dallas Cowboys offensive line that he was playing behind. There have been some improvements here. Charles Cross, their first-round pick. They pick up Abraham Lucas in the 3rd round, so 2 of the more polished pass protectors in this draft class. And then you've got Damian Lewis, Austin Blythe, Gabe Jackson, kind of along that interior. It's going to be on those rookie tackles, man. If those rookie tackles kind of learn and grow, I think you're going to see a better offensive line, maybe week 9 or 10 than you're going to see maybe week 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's the big thing for them. This is a team that has to continue to evolve. They've tried to reshuffle the deck and get the pieces right, but it's tough, and it's going to be tough when you have younger. But it's a more talented quintet than the quintet that we saw at the end of last season. Yeah,
so if we're going kind of, improved, not improved, I would say of that group, if we're going to get a kind of a 1+, 2+ type thing, I would look at the Falcons, and I'm saying, man, it looks pretty similar to what they've had last year. I would say the Eagles, similar to what they've had last year. Now, that's going to be a little bit on Jalen to continue to grow and mature and them staying healthy along the offensive line. I'd say the Carolina Panthers and the Seahawks got a little bit better. Mm-hmm. And I would say of that group, provided Becton stays healthy and you bring over Laken Tomlinson, I would say the Jets would probably be the most improved of that fivesome there.
Yeah, I would agree with you. The Jets have improved in a ton of different areas, but improving up front was a huge part of their rebuilding plan. They should feel very comfortable with the guys that they have in front of Zach Wilson. Now it's on Zach Wilson to continue to evolve and grow and do the things that we expect him to do heading into year 2.
All right, let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to look at the playmakers for the teams near the bottom and see what those teams have done to get better. Okay, Buck, we look at explosive pass plays. So these are pass plays over 15+ yards. We look at the 5 worst teams in the league in that department. Maybe some will surprise you, some won't. Tied with 72, which was the fewest, the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans. Right behind them, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, man, the AFC South, not an explosive passing division. Then you've got Pittsburgh and Indy tied at 75. So you've got all 4 of the 5 least explosive passing teams. That's that whole division. That's the AFC South.
Well, I mean, look in the division. If we name the best receiver in that division before A.J. Brown was traded away, he would kind of fall into that category. The Texans have Brandon Cooks. But that's it. You don't have elite playmakers on the outside. And so then you think about that and the way they play defense there. They try and take away the deep ball.
They run the ball and play defense in that division.
Defense, and they keep it in front. But to win games and to score points, you have to deliver explosive plays. You have to get explosives, and they're not generating enough explosive plays.
All right, let's look at the Tennessee Titans. You mentioned it. I mean, this is a team that didn't produce explosives with A.J. Brown. Now you take him out of the mix. So, they get out and get Treylon Burks, who Treylon Burks provided a lot of explosive plays at Arkansas. So you're hoping he's going to give you some of that pop, some of that life. They bring over Robert Woods. Woody's kind of more of a possession guy than a pure, explosive down the field over the top guy. They at the running back position, they come back and kind of complement Derrick Henry with another kind of bulldog and Hassan Haskins out of Michigan. The tight end position, they get a Okonkwo who, was interesting because he kind of fits that mold of tight ends they've had in the past. When you think about Delaney Walker, they've had that type of guy. They haven't had him
Jonnu Smith, those types
since Jonnu Smith went to the Patriots in free agency. So they try and get some of that there for some explosive plays. But I don't know, man. You look at that group and say that that's going to be a much more explosive group.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say that they're going to be more explosive. The only thing that will change the equation is opponents having to load up to deal with King Henry. More guys in the box, more one-on-one coverage on the outside. You do have a route running Robert Woods who is terrific in terms of creating space, but he's still not a big playmaker. Looking at it, man, you can see the Titans right back in this same situation because I don't know if they have enough. Normally we equate explosive plays with speed. I don't know if they're a fast enough unit on the outside to deliver some of those explosive plays.
Yeah, Treylon Burks is going to be fascinating because, you look at the 40 time, not going to blow you away. But, man, he had a lot of long touchdowns in the SEC playing against really good teams. And he builds that speed as he gets going. So I think there's some hope there.
Yeah, so they have to hope that he becomes a tackle-breaking machine on the perimeter.
Yeah.
He catches the ball on the perimeter, much like A.J. Brown, because A.J. Brown had a bunch of explosive plays, and he doesn't appear to have that elite speed to run past you. But breaking tackles, being physical, that could be Treylon Burks' calling card.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, we're just looking at the pass plays here. Now, obviously, you look at explosive runs, the Tennessee Titans are going to be right at the top of the list. Houston Texans, from the passing game, they go out and get John Mechie in the second round, who's one of the best possession receivers. I think maybe one of the best slot receivers in the draft class. Nico Collins coming back. He showed some promise. Brandon Cooks has been that consistent player in this league for a long time. So, I don't know if they necessarily got much more explosive, but I think, Mechie adds to the group. Nico Collins is going to continue to improve and get better, and you've got Brandon Cooks. So, and then in the offensive line-wise, you bring in Kenyon Green in the first round, so maybe that gives you more opportunity to get some things down the field. I would say that's going to be a little bit better. I don't think that's a drastically improved explosive unit, but I think they'll be a little bit better. I'll give them a 1+ on that one, Buck.
1+. Okay, 1+. I think they are a little better. I think they're a little better. I think the quarterback is going to be better. I think the quarterback played really well the last half of the season. He continues to build upon that as he settles in. Second year, similar system. Should work. Davis Mills and those guys throwing the ball on the outside.
Okay, Jacksonville. Again, we were doing a tour through the AFC South in terms of non-explosive passing games. They go out and they are very active in free agency. Obviously, much was made about Christian Kirk. You've got he's going to be teamed up there with Marvin Jones and Zay Jones. You've got Laviska Shenault coming back. That's kind of that receiving core that they're going to be relying on. Now you get Travis Etienne back in the backfield. Maybe he gives you some explosive plays out of the backfield. He can really catch the ball. It was kind of his calling card, and they've made some improvements along that offensive line. You go out and you draft Fortner at center. You sign Brandon Scherf in free agency. You figure they should be a little bit better there. We're going to get to them in terms of points, and we'll talk about their play callers and the new coaching staff. But just in terms of weaponry, What do you think here about the upgrades that were made or weren't made there in Jacksonville?
Well, significant upgrades based on what they played with last year. Um, they just have better playmakers, better receivers, guys that can run routes and catch passes, and that gives them a chance. Um, Not necessarily home run hitters, but just to upgrade in talent gives them a chance to kind of get out of this cellar dweller situation that they're in. I don't know how much more explosive, but I would say this: keep an eye on Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram could be the guy that delivers a ton of
Oh yeah,
explosive
I didn't
plays
even mention him. Good
because
call.
he's a guy who has the opportunity to create mismatches. And if you create mismatches, particularly against linebackers and overmatched safeties or nickelbacks, that's when the big plays happen. Jacksonville should be more explosive, and as they tailor this offense more towards Trevor Lawrence, I think you'll see some of the things he did at Clemson, and he was able to deliver big plays when he was with the Tigers.
So we'll give them a 1. We'll give them a 1+ as well. Let's move on to Pittsburgh here. Pittsburgh, Ben notoriously, played small ball here towards the end of his career. They were tied with Indy 75 explosive pass plays. We look at what they've done in the offseason. You go out and draft George Pickens in the 2nd round, who can go down the field and go up and get it. You go out and get Calvin Austin, who can fly, one of the fastest players in the draft. You get him in the 4th round. You've got Claypool coming back, Deontay Johnson coming back. They bring over Miles Boykin from Baltimore. They've gotten more dynamic, definitely in the draft with Pickens and Austin.
Yeah, they certainly have gotten better. And we talked about it. The explosive plays really is because primarily dealt with Ben Roethlisberger lack of arm strength. He couldn't push the ball down the field.
Yeah.
They have speedy players that can get past people and run deep, but they certainly have upgraded the speed and explosiveness on the outside, depending upon which quarterback. And look, we always talk about Mitch Trubisky versus Kenny Pickett, but remember, Mason Rudolph is in the building. Maybe he has an opportunity to do some of this stuff, but whoever's at quarterback should offer them more vertical threat ability, should be willing to test the deeper part of the field. With the speed that they have, they should be much improved in terms of the passing game.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to watch that quarterback battle take place there. You've got a good tight end, Freiermuth, good young tight end as well. But with not only Pickett and Trubisky being able to push the ball vertically, you've got 2 really good athletes who are going to be able to extend some plays, which I think will provide some more explosives as well. Okay, let's get to the 5th team there. That's the Indianapolis Colts. This is a team, obviously new quarterback with Matt Ryan coming in there. They draft Alec Pierce in the 2nd round. You've got Michael Pittman coming back. You've got Paris Campbell, who you just keep waiting for him to kind of put it all together. It hasn't happened yet. But that's the group you're dealing with there. And then they drafted Jelani Woods in the 3rd round, the tight end, who's he was probably the best traits tight end in the entire draft in terms of the size, speed combination that he brings. So, I think Pierce and Woods, that's the hope there, that you're going to get some dynamic down the field plays from both guys who did that a lot in college.
Yeah, they did do it a lot in college. And what you're hoping is you now have a quarterback who can identify the open areas of coverage, meaning in the pre-snap phase, being able to kind of see when the defense is kind of showing their cards and taking advantage of it. He also will accelerate the development of the young wide receivers. Part of the reason why you want to have a veteran quarterback is because they also can serve as that wide receiver coach and being able to tell young guys, here's what exactly I want. Here's where I expect you to be in this coverage or against this look. I'm going to take my shot, so be ready. Have your antenna up. I just like the fit with Matt Ryan being in Indianapolis. And look, they still could stand to get another big-time wide receiver. But with what they have and how they run the ball with the quarterback that they have in place, I think they'll be able to manufacture some explosive plays with Matt Ryan executing what Frank Wright draws up on the whiteboard.
All right. Of those 5 teams, I guess I think Tennessee, I don't know that they are going, losing A.J. Brown. I don't know that you're going to be more explosive there. We have hope there with Treylon Burks. I think all those teams, I kind of give them that 1+. I don't think there's anybody that just jumps off the page that they've gotten so much better there. But I think I would go with Pittsburgh, with a combination of Pickens and Austin in the draft. And then you also look at the quarterback situation, being able to push the ball more vertically. Of those 5 teams, in terms of who's going to make the biggest leap in explosives, I think I might go with the Steelers, Buck. How about you?
The only reason I won't go with the Steelers is because I actually believe, given the Jaguar situation, I think Trevor Lawrence would be much better than he was a season ago. I'm going to go with the Jags, and it's not just a homer pick, but when you just look at the improvements that they made at wide receiver with a quarterback-friendly system being put in to help the quarterback. I just think we see more big plays from them than we saw in the past. I think they make the biggest jump in the explosive play factor.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. That's going to lead us beautifully into the last one here, which is we're going to talk about the play callers and how that can maybe impact these teams. So dead last in points. These are the 5 worst teams in points last year. Jacksonville, the Giants, the Texans, the Panthers, the Jets. Again, you see a lot of these teams showing up in all these lists here. But Jacksonville only 14.9 points a game. It's going to get better. It can't get worse. You got Doug Peterson coming in there. Press Taylor, they have history together. I really like Press. Got to know him a little bit. I think he's really sharp and really smart. I think that group, when you look at Trevor Lawrence, having some stability around him with this coaching staff, and you mentioned, the upgrades that you like a lot, in terms of receivers, getting ETN back. I think this is a team that, 14.9. I don't know if they're going to average 28 points a game, Buck, but can we get them to 20? I mean, we could make a good 4 or 5 point improvement here.
Yeah, I think they can make an improvement. And it's not just the guys that you mentioned in the quarterback room. You talk about Doug Peterson and Press Taylor, but then you have Mike McCoy, former head coach of the Chargers, who's been an offense coordinator in the league, done a bunch of different things. And then you also have Jim Bob Cooter, who helped Matthew Stafford kind of find his way. So you'll see better play and production from the quarterback. You have better personnel on the perimeter. You have no choice but to get better when you improve in those areas.
No doubt. All right, when we go next on the list here, averaging a whopping 15.2 points per game, that is the New York Giants. So the Giants, you look at what they do. You bring in Brian Daboll. Mike Kafka is going to come over from Kansas City. I've always thought he was kind of one of those bright young minds. He's going to be a head coach. You talk about fitting the profile. I mean, backup quarterback, Northwestern, around Andy Reid. He's like he's going to.
If he can show that he can coordinate an offense, regardless of whether he's calling the plays or not, like that's the next step for him in terms of checking off the boxes. Like this is huge. So he gets an opportunity with the Giants. And look, this is a team that should be better. I just think the organization of the offense will be better because of Brian Daboll and that offensive staff's ability to kind of modernize what they're doing on that side of the ball. You have a quarterback who is athletic enough to make plays with his arms and legs when it comes to Daniel Jones. And then it's a matter of, Saquon Barkley is back. They're able to kind of run the football, do some things, throwing the ball to him on the outside. This should be an improved offensive lineup, just with the guys returning to health and having better organization on offense.
Yeah, no, I think both those teams are double pluses. When you look at just, the structure and the organization that they have, I think you look at also Evan Neal helping that offensive line should be a little bit better there. I think both those teams are going to be improved. All right, the Houston Texans, we've talked about them. You're going to get a chance to see Davis Mills coming back here, see what type of improvements he makes. When you look at them averaging 16.5 points a game, Buck, again, it's got to get better. We talked about them lacking in explosive plays. They showed up in that list in the past game. But you've got Pep Hamilton's going to take over the reins, who's already been in the building coaching the quarterbacks. He's going to be the offensive coordinator. How optimistic are you that this group's going to be a little bit more productive?
I'm optimistic only because of the quarterback. I think the quarterback is pretty good. I think Davis Mills is going to be a really good quarterback, and they were able to get him in the 3rd round. But if he had come out in this year's draft, he would have been in that conversation as the top quarterback to come out. So I think he'll improve. He got better over the last half of the season. The weapons around him still leave something to be desired, but systematically, I think they're more efficient. So were you giving the Jags and the Giants double pluses?
Yeah,
I don't think you can give them a single. I give them a single plus.
That's a 1+. That's a 1+. All right, Carolina Panthers average 17.9 points per game, and Ben McAdoo is back in business. He is going to take over as the new offensive coordinator there. We've mentioned Carolina. They showed up in the pressure percentage list. They were the 2nd worst in the league in that regard. We agree they've improved the offensive line. But are you confident in Ben McAdoo and his ability to try and take this offense out of the doldrums here and be a little bit more productive?
I think they will be more productive. 2 factors. Christian McCaffrey comes back, and I believe Ben McAdoo will find a way to simplify the offense for Sam Darnold, for him to have more consistency in terms of his production. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 10 or a top 15 quarterback, but I think he'll be more consistent because we have seen Ben McAdoo go from Green Bay to the Giants and help Eli Manning become more consistent by putting an emphasis on the quick rhythm passing game. that might really help Sam Darnold by like simplifying it, make it quick rhythm, get the ball out of his hands, and just go what we call it. I think you call it hunt completions.
Yeah.
Just go chase completions. Go see if you can string together 7, 8, 9, 10 completions in a row. Make the defense adjust, and then selectively take your shots down the field. But I would expect this team to be. I think it'd be more effective and more efficient.
Yeah, be a completion collector. That's what they're going to ask. I'm going to give them a baby plus. So we've got the regular plus, we've got the double plus. I'm going to give them the baby plus. So it's a plus, but it's not like the all caps plus. It's just that little font
Itty bitty
plus.
Just an itty bitty small font. Small
font plus. Okay, the Jets bring back Mike LaFleur. It's year 2 in that system. I think this is a nice mix of continuity with your play caller and your quarterback, with the quarterback making some improvements. Hopefully, obviously, everybody knows about the weight that he's put on, gotten stronger, and then the talent that they've assembled around him. It really everywhere. Tight ends, you look at backs, you look at receivers. They're just a more talented team with a little continuity there between LaFleur and Zach Wilson. I mean, you tell me, Buck. I think we went double pluses on Jacksonville, double pluses on the Giants. I think I would go double pluses on the Jets here as well.
Yeah, I think so. They have so many weapons in terms of the upgrades. We talk about Garrett Wilson, but I think the tight end, CJ Uzama coming over, really helps them. You saw the effect.
Oh, don't sleep on Tyler Conklin. I mean, early stuff out of there. Tyler Conklin, it can play. So I would, and you had Rucker. They got 3 tight ends that were probably better than any tight end they had on their roster last year.
Yeah, so now you can control the middle of the field. And we've seen what this offense looks like when San Francisco was able to go with the multiple tight ends and guys who have versatility and put them all over the field and make you adapt and adjust and react to what they're doing. Yeah, it gives you a chance. It gives you a chance to be really, really successful offensively. And overall, man, there should be a lot of optimism in Broadway on the Jets because they've done a really good job in the offseason. And what is done on paper is one thing, but you can just begin to imagine how the pieces of the puzzle are going to come together. There should be a lot of excitement in New York.
Okay, so in the pressure percentage, we both agreed we went the Jets would be the most improved. Explosive pass plays, I went Pittsburgh, you went Jacksonville. In points, I would go with the Jets here. We had kind of the Jacksonville, the Giants, and the Jets were the 3 that we identified. We thought with the play caller aspect of it would be most improved. What was your vote in that one? So you've got Jacksonville, Giants, Jets.
Look, I'm kind of with you on that. Like I can go with the Jets on that. I think the Jets will put up points. I'm gonna go with the Giants because I think Daniel Jones has been underrated. I think Brian Daboll will help us see the best version of Daniel Jones, whatever that version is.
Okay, so if you've been listening, then following on, let's sum it up here. When we looked at the 3 Ps, pass protection, playmakers, play callers, and we looked at the 5 worst teams in those 3 categories, and we've kind of gone through it, and we've identified teams that we think are going to be better this year. So improvement is coming based off this little study that we just put together here. You can count on the Jets being better. So it should be significantly better according to what we've done here. You look at Jacksonville is going to be better. Pittsburgh's going to be better. And the Giants are going to be better. So those are the teams. The 2 teams in New York, Jacksonville, Pittsburgh. Those are the teams that we are optimistic about that are going to take their next step here going forward. I think that's a kind of a fun exercise, Buck.
No, it is a fun exercise. Look, man, we're getting close. It's funny, DJ, because there's only a couple of weeks left of the offseason. And before you know it, but by the time we go on vacation and come back, training camp is upon us.
Yep.
And it is on, and the marathon begins all over again.
Yep, no doubt. This has been a fun one. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. It's fun to kind of take some of these numbers, kind of put it together with our philosophy, see what we come up with, and there you have it. So if you're a fan of the Jets, the Giants, the Jags, the Steelers, maybe a little hope, a little optimism here over the summer as we head towards the 2022 NFL season. All right, that's going to do it for us today. Appreciate you guys hanging with us. We'll catch you next time right here on Move the Sticks.